Hello everyone. In the first 3 segments of this video, John discusses mistakes and things to avoid in life. He begins by suggesting that in life, you should try different foods and have as many new experiences as you can, which I agree with because you won't find your passion until you look for it. Chapters 5 through 7 are all about teaching you how to develop a better future wife. He advises trying not to be self-conscious as well. John says, plan your life around your natural strengths. Most people dread new experiences and are comfy in their old routines because it's part of their personality. It sounds to me like John has a high level of the personality trait openness. He advises against getting married in your late teens or early 20s, and instead advises against going on a hiking vacation in the spring or fall when the weather is favorable. I always travel that way since it's not too hot or too chilly. Like he's describing my life, he advises visiting natural places before the age of 50. He advises making a list of desired experiences and outcomes for your life and taking the natural growth of your life and mind into consideration. I'm still wanting to travel to Zion National Park once more and trek Angel's Landing in the Narrows. There's a recent advertisement I watched with you and McGregor where he questioned viewers, which will you regret more, the stuff you didn't buy in life or the places you didn't go? If you put it off and delay it, then it might never happen. You're never ready for it, so you have to just leap right in. I say maybe find a friend or family member and store your stuff in their garage or spare room while you're gone and pay them. Instead, I would say to go further and use your possessions and experiences as a way to profit financially, so you can go and have more such experiences. If you make travel videos, such as myself, monetize them. If you collect things, then make a YouTube channel, for example, and profit off of your collection and use the money to add more to it. But yes, minimalism is important. But what if you can't get over your sentimentality for better days? People often wish they still had their childhood toys or some other object that reminds them of some good memory, especially if they aren't able to make any new good memories. Now, I'm an MGTOW living by the lake in a huge house. About 20 years ago, he lived in one tiny corner of the giant house and rented out the rest. He told me to buy one art piece to remind me of every trip. I went on, and that's what I've been doing. I didn't regret buying all of those things. And if you're an open creative person, having objects for inspiration is not a bad idea. Be minimal, but choose what you collect carefully. Don't collect XI, for example. John then continues by saying don't live beyond your means, and that it's poisoned to impress people you don't like, that you're also far more than your car or your house. It sounds to me like he's been starting to listen to Tyler Durden from Fight Club here. He shares to also not pursue status. Of course, you do need some for healthy self-esteem, but don't get married and instead focus on your accomplishments and experiences. Instead, you might inspire others to follow in your footsteps. He says to also not obsess with fashion outfits, fall out of date, and style of stupid. I couldn't agree more. He continues by saying always be willing to walk away from things, have no loyalty to anyone or anything, even if it's your own family, even if your spouse is a dead weight, then simply cut them loose. The idea is you don't want people to hold you back. That's one of the reasons I left my longest adult relationship. And I don't regret it for one moment. Once again, very good advice with regards to negotiating for things in life. He says be willing to walk away from any deal, wait until the other party offers a price first before negotiating. And he also brings up the Ackerman model, which I've never heard of before. What you're supposed to do is propose 65 of the price that you're willing to pay, and then fall back down to 85.95 etsu until you eventually reach 100. If you have to give out a lowball offer, you never know what price people are willing to let things go. So my father does this all the time when he's buying furniture, and as a kid I watched it work. John's book so far is similar to how I'm writing mine, with short 1 to 2 page long sections for each point for those with short attention spans. That's what I like about it. He closes the second chapter by saying this, and I quote, when you go to a barbecue, you offer to bring a dish. When you go home for Christmas, you bring gifts for your relatives. Very sound advice that I learned the hard way. He also says to avoid people who will not negotiate in good faith, because they're people you can't trust. Moving on to the third chapter, it's called Things to Avoid, and he says that promises you make over time should be avoided. Things like whole life insurance. I agree. as I used to have a license to sell it, and I avoided selling it to people I didn't have a problem selling term life, which lasted roughly 5, 10, or even 15 years to protect you if you had kids, and John agrees with that. I, however, disagree with him about home ownership. Depending on where you live, yes, a house has too much maintenance, but a townhouse might be easier for you. Plus, there's rising equity that protects you from inflation, for example, where I'm at a 300,000 house 15 to 20 years ago is now. But a townhouse might be easier for you. Plus, there's rising equity that protects you from inflation, for example, where I'm at a 300,000 house 15 to 20 years ago is now. I don't agree with him, though, when he says to limit your to-do list. I've found that you'll surprise yourself with regards to what you're capable of if you put too much on your plate. I think it's important for every man to find his breaking point so he finally knows his limitations. Sean continues by spreading Jordan Peterson advice, like clean your room, bucko, don't turn yourself into a tattoo-covered freak, and do spaced repetition and learning, which is something I've never heard before. But I can't comment about it because I've never tried it. Moving to chapter 5, it's about understanding and overcoming depression and living in another culture to broaden your mind. Yet another thing that mostly open people will do. I wonder if John has that personality type openness that I spoke about earlier, because he's so about new experiences. His financial advice on waiting for the business cycle to bottom out before purchasing an investment is also dead on. You wait for things to be near the bottom and then you buy. I would add that most of the time, it's hard to discern the bottom and get over your fear by buying while everything else is falling. In those chapters is also some information about starting a family, so that's not exactly a midtown part. But he's black pill because he says if the conditions for family formation are bad in your country, then simply move to another one, meaning that he believes in geomaxing. So it's more about purple pills, I guess. He also does touch upon religion and gives good advice to stay away from the prosperity gospel. You've got to be real dumb if you believe that giving money to million-dollar preachers is going to mean that Jesus is going to bless you and pay you some dividends. John says to focus on the faith and not the church or institution itself. Very sound advice. Chapter 6 is about money, and he says that when choosing your profession, you need to take your natural habits into consideration. He has tons of great advice, like keeping a bit of physical cash safely hidden at home. But I don't agree with his take on avoiding debts. Back in the day, I got an investment loan in 2019, and I was only paying 2.25% interest on it. I would die to have that kind of loan today and invest that money in the market for the longer term, earning 6 to 10% conservatively. That would have been amazing. A loan is fine so long as it brings you more money than you spend on the interest. But today, a similar loan would be roughly 6 to 7%, so it's not worth it anymore. Just like back in the day, getting a college loan made sense based on earnings potential. But not anymore. John mentions that in his chapter. I agree on everything in this chapter, except for him telling guys to avoid buying houses in college. You don't have to buy an overpriced home. You can pay for something's mortgage that's 80 of your existing rental costs. If you want to travel, you rent it out so the mortgage is covered. My biggest mistake in life was buying real estate too late and selling it too early. He also says to avoid eating out to save yourself some money. I would go further and say it doesn't only save you money, but it saves your health too. I think that's about all I got to say about this book.